Neuroscience of Addiction, a presentation by Tricia Blackwelder. In order to understand how drugs affect our brain, we need to understand the brain. Our nervous system and brain are the controls of our body. The brain is made up of billions of nerve cells known as neurons. The brain includes the cortex, which is the front portion and uppermost portion of the brain. It is divided into two halves, which are known as hemispheres. The corpus callosum is the nerves that communicates between the two hemispheres. The cortex is responsible for sensory, motor, and cognitive functions. The cerebellum is the command center for our muscle movements. The brainstem is the connection to the spinal cord. The thalamus is the central structure that receives all sensory inputs and signals. The limbic system operates our memory, emotion, and is highly affected by drugs due to the control it has over our reward system. Neurons communicate with one another through chemical messengers known as neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters must pass through a small gap known as synapse. This is where they attach to receptors, which is the process of neural communication. The key components of the brain that are closely involved and affected by drug use is the basal ganglia, extended amygdala, and the frontal cortex. The basal ganglia is the start of the addiction cycle. This is a stage where the substance of choice is used and intoxication is felt. If the body stops being supplied the drug, it will go through withdrawals, which is a result in lower activation of the reward system in the basal ganglia and activation of the stress systems in the extended amygdala. The brain begins to experience cravings, which comes from the frontal cortex. This is where the ability to organize thoughts, prioritize tasks, make decisions, and controls our emotions, actions, and impulses. The neurotransmitters attach to the receptors that send the chemical message along to the reward circuit. The body enjoys the pleasurable feeling, and addiction occurs when the pleasure circuits in the brain get overwhelmed. This causes changes in the brain. A daily pleasurable reward of eating no longer is satisfying. The drugs flood the reward circuit, causing confusion. The brain now craves only the drug for pleasure. Once the drug is no longer taken, the body experiences withdrawal symptoms, which can include depression, anxiety, vomiting, insomnia, and body aches. In a normal brain, the neurotransmitters attach to the receptors and communicate effectively with the brain. When drugs are consumed, the substance interferes and blocks the signal from being delivered properly. This is an illustration of the process of signals from the neuron to the receptors. Our reward system is located in the limbic system of our brain. When our brains receive an reward, this activates a sensation of pleasure that we want to continue feeling. The reward circuit releases dopamine neurons, which release neurotransmitters of dopamine. When a reward is received, there will be a larger burst of dopamine released. Drugs interfere with this process, leading to addiction. The body becomes dependent on trying to activate the reward circuit to feel the pleasure, so increased amounts of drugs are used to try and achieve this. Psychoactive drugs affect our overall physical health, change our behavior, and have detrimental effects on the brain and body. Drugs have negative effects on the brain and causes earlier deterioration. Simple functions such as breathing and sleeping become disturbed. Control over our emotions becomes harder, causing anxiety, depression, and mood swings. Complications in sensory and motor controls will be seen due to the effect the drug places on the thalamus and brainstem. When the brain no longer has the drug, it struggles to function, causing stress and irritability. The picture on the right illustrates the control of a healthy brain versus the brain that has been abused by drugs. You can see large parts of the brain were demolished and suffered physical changes. These are the effects drugs will have on the brain.